And a TGIF, everyone. Stay warm out there. We have no racing this weekend in Kentucky, in New York, in Arkansas. But, man, do we have racing in Florida. Jeremy Plonk, Scott Shapiro with you, and Southern California as well. We've got some stakes races to talk about here as Holy Bull weekend hits in Florida. Of course, Pegasus World Cup was just last week. Skippy Longstocking at the age of 7, not long in the tooth. Scott, he got his big win. And we'll see if the 3-year-olds can step forward towards the Florida Derby this week.
Yeah, it was good to see Skippy get that win. Not that we were on him and did not benefit financially, but, kind of a horse that they've managed. Well, not kind of. They've managed Skippy so well, and they've given him a shot every now and again, though, at the best of the best. He hadn't taken advantage or really gotten that close until this time, but he ran down his stablemate, Weta Barrio. It's kind of was the hiccup on the road to the Derby as we picked things up at the LeComp, took a break. Now we're going to really get back in the swing of things with the Holy Bull starting, tomorrow. We're recording Friday morning.
Holy Bull has my number 1 ranked Kentucky Derby prospect in the field, and we're going to have some news about a lot of people's number 1 coming into the year going off the trail. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. For those of you watching on YouTube and on X, be sure to hammer that like button and shout out to you in the comments section. Tell us who you like in these races. Help us grow the audience for the First Call podcast. For those of you on our traditional audio channels, here are the 8 races Scott and I are going to handicap over the next half hour or so. To Gulfstream Park, we got a handful of them, 5, in fact. Kittens Joy, Swale, Forward Gal, Swedish, Chant, and Holy Bull Stakes will be on our menu. Those are races 5, 8, 10, 11, and 12 Saturday from Gulfstream. We'll go to Santa Anita on Saturday for a pair of stakes races, the prep towards the Santa Anita Handicap, the San Pasqual, and then we'll get the distaffers on the grass in the Megahertz Stakes. Wrap things up at Tampa Bay Downs. They've got a couple stakes races on Saturday. We'll handicap one of those two, the Tampa Bay Stakes at Tampa Bay Downs. If you're betting this weekend with First Bet and Express Bet, a late addition to the promo menu, make sure you check for updates there on the promotions page at First Bet and Express Bet, because they've added a $1,000 hit and split in the late pick 4 on Saturday at Gulfstream Park, Saturday at Santa Anita, and then do it all again on Sunday with Gulfstream and Santa Anita late pick 4s juice with an extra $1,000 in hit and split bonuses. What does that mean? If you hit the late pick 4 at either one of those tracks on Saturday or Sunday, you'll get your pari-mutuel winnings as well as share $1,000 in cash into your betting account just with the other players on this on the platforms who also hit the late pick 4. So if you're the only player to take down the late pick 4 with First Bet and Express Bet, you'll get $1,000. There are 10 of you, you'll get $100 each, but extra cash. You don't have to do anything other than register and follow along. Scott's got some picks this weekend for some of those pick 4 sequences at Express Bet and First Bet on the blog section. So just follow along, play along, and come up with your own plays, of course, for those hit and split pick 4s. All right, Scott, you ready to do some handicapping at Gulfstream?
Absolutely, yeah. That first of those 4 sequences that you mentioned, the Gulfstream Park late pick 4. I wrote that up this morning, and very good sequence. You got 3 stakes races, and It kicks off with an allowance turf.
Yeah, races 9 through 12 on Saturday at Gulfstream. Also want to mention with Gulfstream and Santa Anita in the 4, we've got the Coast to Coast pick 5 all days when both tracks are running. Those are 5 select races in a pick 5 sequence. And then also the Sunset pick 6 with Gulfstream and Santa Anita. That's the final 3 races on the card at both Gulfstream and Santa Anita each racing day when they both run. So we've got a lot of extra wagers to throw in the mix this weekend as well. Maybe we don't have some of the tracks we were looking for. Southwest Stakes at Oaklawn canceled this week. Will be rerun next Friday on the 6th. As for the other big Derby prep this weekend, the Withers in New York, that has been canceled. Obviously, the card all week in New York has been canceled. We do not have a date yet for when the Withers will be rerun. Kittens Joy Stakes. Go ahead, Scott.
Let me jump in before we handicap. Yeah, the Sunset 6 on Saturday, the dollar wager, last 3 at both tracks. Gulfstream and Santa Anita, very compelling. You get 4 stakes races in there. We'll talk about all of them on here. And then the last 2 races are the last 2 at Santa Anita. You get a full field maiden special and preceded by a first level allowance. So these are the best wagers, as best or as good going. You get the retail only in the Coast to Coast and Sunset. You get the 15% takeout. And I hit one of these good Coast to Coast. You get a $1 minimum wager in there, and you get paid the right amount. Let me tell you, it's a good wager. So, you don't want to force it, but definitely a wager that I would definitely partake in if you have some strong opinions.
All right, Coast to Coast Pick 5, Sunset Pick 6 this weekend. To Gulfstream's 5th, the Kittens Joy Stakes, named for the 2004 Palm Beach Stakes winner for Dale Romans over the track at Gulfstream Park, over the turf there. And, of course, Kittens Joy went on later that year. He won the Secretariat, the Virginia Derby, beat older horses in the Joe Hurst Turf Classic, and ran a bang-up second in the Breeders' Cup Turf that year at Lone Star Park. The Kittens Joy Stakes for 3-year-olds, a field of 8 in here on the grass, going 1 mile and a 16th. Who do you like, Scott?
I like the 2 Alpaland in here. I think this race very well could get bet in. Like the morning lines, I handicapped it. Let's see what we got here. The morning line, I presume it's going to get bet like a 2-horse race.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Turf Star with the class coming off the layoff, listed at 5-2. And then I like Alpaland, who's listed at 9-5. And that makes sense to me, JP. Both of those horses look to have the advantage over their rivals in here. I think Turf Star coming off the bench. Grand Motion's had a good meet, but further drawn outside. Might need the race. Who knows? I think Alpaland, man, this horse is coming off 2 straight wins here at Gulfstream, and both of those trips hopefully are not like the one he's going to get today. 2 back, 3 wide in the first turn. Last time floated out 4 wide into the first turn. So has overcome some less than ideal voyages. And I know it says first time gelding in my PPs. I'd be very surprised if this horse wasn't gelded somewhere earlier than over the last few weeks.
Yeah, he just ran January the 1st. That'd be a quick comeback on something like that. First time gelding, running back the same month. He's won 3 in a row as well. It's like usually change things up when things aren't going right. But certainly he's in really good form right now, that being Alpaland. He's Scott's top choice. Turf Star making the first start since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. He ran 6, split the field that day for Grand Motion, as you mentioned, second in the Bourbon Stakes. He comes in with credentials, as does Kozalite, who's an interesting horse in here. One of the top Florida breds last year in the Florida Sire Stakes series on the dirt. He was excellent in the 1-turn races. He did win a 2-turn mile on his maiden special in open company. What do you make of Kozalite in here? Back against open runners, first start since November, when he faded a bit in the in reality stakes behind Strategic Risk, who's turned out to be a pretty good one, came back and won the Smarty Jones.
You get IRAD, so that to me obviously is a good thing in terms of his chances of winning the race, I guess, but it's also going to hurt his price, I would think, to an extent. His turf race was a win, and it was a move forward off of his sprint win or a runner-up effort on debut. But when I went back and watched, I just didn't get the same feel that he's a turf horse that I do in his next start on the dirt. I'm going to play it as he is probably a dirt horse, and if he is a turf horse, maybe a Florida bred that's a couple of the top couple.
Let's go back to the Dania Beach Stakes, where the Mark Casse trained Alpaland won his 3rd in a row. Let you see him in action.
Quick, but is in front. It's Honey Dutch turning in on top, almost the length in front. Alpaland is second. From the outside, Naughty Nicks. From the inside, trying to run home now is Easy Win. 1/8 of a mile to go. Honey Dutch trying to buckle down for Alpaland, who's surging forward on the outside. Easy Win peels off their flank. Final 16th of a mile. Alpaland has hit the front when it matters, and it's John Velasquez for Mark Casse. It's Alpaland to win the Dania Beach. Honey Dutch.
If he can make it 4 in a row, Scott's top pick, and I'm not disagreeing in the Kittens Joy Stakes. We're both there on the red-hot Mark Casse barn. Let's go ahead to the 8th race on Saturday at Gulfstream Park. It's the Swale Stakes, $175,000 race here. 7-furlong sprint. These are 3-year-olds. No Kentucky Derby qualifying points because it's a sprint race, but occasionally we'll see a horse out of the Swale end up in the Florida Derby trail, and we'll see if anybody stretches out in this particular race. The Swale, of course, named for the Kentucky Derby winner and the Belmont winner of 1984, who came through and kind of showed that versatility. He won the Hutchison sprinting at 6 furlongs and the Florida Derby during the Gulfstream Path back there in 84 for Woody Stevens. He was one of those 5 straight Belmont Stakes winners for Woody Stevens. You remember Swale? He was right in the middle of that 5 in a row, winning the 3rd for a Woody. If there's going to be a horse in this race who does stretch out in distance, it's probably Class President in here, the Todd Pletcher trainee by Uncle Mo. He's out of a quality road mare. Good-looking debut win at a mile. He cuts back a little bit here. Pletcher's got some open spaces. We'll talk about that in just a minute on some of his horses moving forward with Ted Nafi being retired recently. So Class President to me is the best prospect in this field if we think there's going to be a 3-year-old to talk about on the trail. But as far as sprints go, Solitude Dude is pretty darn good. He's outside in this field of 6.
He sure is. First to talk about class president, cuts back at furlong. Maybe Todd, as we'll talk later, would have run him in a different spot had he known what he knows now. But he's in here. He had a very professional debut. It's difficult to win on a 1-turn mile on debut. He's bred to get 2 turns. He's drawn down on the inside. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know how good of a field he beat in that on debut. And then Solitude Dude, who I mean is the absolute clear horse to beat in here. The outside draw did him favors in a compact group. It'll give Irad Ortiz Jr. options out of the gate. And it's very interesting, JP. Irad was a board class president for Todd Pletcher on debut, hops off after the 3 1/4 length win to ride the Safi Joseph trainee we had not been on before. So clearly, this horse, is looked like the real deal thus far, going to take some beating. I picked against him, but I'm playing a saver exacta without question. I just thought Epic Summer was going to be a playback after his effort last time. We talked about the Mucho Macho Man on here. He ran great on debut, very gritty, beat a horse that came back to win the next out that I believe was supposed to be in the Withers, and that was canceled. And he was out of training for almost a month, and he ran in that Mucho Macho Man on just 2 works. And I think you have to assume he was short in that race. So I was just going to play him back almost, no doubt. I think he's going to have his work cut out for him here, but he was really good on debut, and I'm hopeful he gets a little bit overlooked in here. I think he might. I don't think, there's really that many people that are going to be intrigued all that much by him. Solitude Dude looks so tough. So tough on paper.
Yeah, he's going to get bet. Class president's going to get bet. Hammond's coming off a win in the juvenile sprint at 4-5. You got 2 or 3 stakes winners in here. I think you're going to get your price on Epic Summer. Let's forget about what happened last time and go back to the good version of Epic Summer in his debut and let the fans see what you saw.
Fight for allegiance, Gulfy, they're trying to catch the top trio who still go at it. Epic Summer still there. Epic Summer with a neck in front. Dark Assault with every chance to run by. Schoolyard Superman in between horses has to pick it up. But Epic Summer is just opening up the margin once again. Epic Summer is now up by 2.5. Epic Summer is going to win it. It's all Epic Summer. Joel Rosario to get the score. Epic Summer wins it tight there.
Scott's on Epic Summer, the 3 here in the Swale Stakes. I'm going to take class president on the rail. I just think his class, and he was brilliant enough to win, say, going that mile the first time. I know he's got to go quicker in here. That was a slower pace, but I think his class is going to show in this particular spot. And we stretch Solitude Dude out to 7/8. He might be a pure 6 furlong horse. We'll have to see, but I'm not going to take him at a short price. I'll take class president. Scott's on Epic Summer in the Swale Stakes. Let's switch ahead now. That was race 8 on the card. To race number 10 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday is the Forward Gal Stakes. This is our express bet race of the week. We've got a field of 8 in this grade 3 race, the Forward Gal Stakes, named for the 1970 Florida bred. No, 1970 she won the Spinaway and the Frizette up in Saratoga. Florida bred Forward Gal, the namesake of this race number 10 on the program. Field of 8 in here. Scott, and in the race of the week, right up in here. I thought On Time Girl's the most logical horse in here. She's coming off a win in the Fern Creek at Churchill. But I thought number 1, Music Burst, had a little bit of fight in this particular spot. Rusty Arnold trains. Arnold trained the winner of this race back in 2023. The McLean's Music run really well over the main track at Gulfstream Park. Strong win percentage among those. And I like the running lines in here for Music Burst. So I'm going to give her a shot in here under Luis Saez. And you know what? Luis Saez has won the Forward Gal 4 of the last 5 years. I've always loved betting him in 7 furlong races at Keeneland. I follow all the intricate stats there. And 7/8 of a mile races, Luis Saez is almost dominant. He's got the same kind of thing going at Gulfstream as well. I'm going to give a shot in here to Music Burst, but On Time Girl I've got a lot of respect for.
That's interesting. Music Burst, the Saez stat, not that I didn't do the work on Music Burst, who I think has a shot in here. My concern and why I didn't move her into I had her as kind of a backup in the race is, can she sit the pocket, which I think she's going to have to do. I don't think she's fast enough to make the lead and then finish at 7 furlongs, going only 6. She's going to have to be good. You should get rewarded properly, though. I think she has some talent for sure. And I think it's a good thing when these horses come in off that Turfway all weather, wherever it is. I just hear some CDI fanboys and girls in the back of my head. There's a Turfway horse, and it happens a lot. and it's real. It's a real thing. I think it gets you pretty fit for the races. So I like that.
And I know she ran second in Allowance Company at Turfway last time, but believe in Magic, the horse who won that race is multiple stakes placed, was dropping back into Allowance Company. If you go back 2 starts, Music Burst Win came over Paradise, who came back here at Gulfstream for Brad Cox and won nicely right around New Year's Day. So I think she's had better running lines than it looks on paper. So as the step up in class goes in here, I think she's going to be a value play.
Absolutely. Now, originally, On Time Girl is the one to beat, because if she runs back or takes that step forward off of that recent effort in the Fern Creek, they're likely running for second, but she's going to have to deal with more speed and a tougher field than she's faced, although that was a pretty good field. So I just thought there were other ways to go. I'm not really against. Tessellate was my original top pick, but again, down on the inside, this is a filly that's a known commodity, and she's danced her dances. It's nice to see her put 2 races back to back off a big win. We'll take a look at in a moment, but I kind of just think the 8 Imperatrice is going to get a dream run, and I love following horses that have had success with inside posts earlier in their career when they finally get outside after they've had speed at all. It's just a much less stressful trip. And the 7 Furlongs could hit this gal right in the eye. $500,000 purchase. I wouldn't love her if she gets bet off her 5-1, but I'm kind of hopeful and thinking she might get a little bit overlooked, although she is a Todd Pletcher runner, that it was a pretty big ticket item.
Yeah, she won her second start in her career debut. She ran second to another Pletcher trainee, one who they've got a lot of high hopes for. With a Kiss, who beat her in the debut, is a gun runner out of Catherine Sophia, the Kentucky Oaks winner. That was a horse we haven't seen since that career debut with the Kiss, but highly regarded. So Imperatrice, you say, was 5-1 in the debut because the other Pletcher was the one taking all the money, and she ran a decent second in there to that one and then showed improvement next time out. Imperatrice definitely one to keep an eye on. Tessellate, though, goes for a 3rd straight stakes win. As you mentioned, has been able to put together back-to-back stakes wins. The last one came at Tampa Bay.
Tessellate suddenly a length and a half in front. Down to the inside, Gerard's Cross, Love Like Lucy. Tessellate floated wide, but still leads him into the stretch. Gerard's Cross toward the inside, still battling. Lady Valor trying to run on from the back is starting to engage with Ridgie. Inside the final 1/8 of a mile. Tessellate, the work is not done. 5 in a line in behind, but Tessellate's lead is still 3. Lady Valor, Ridgie coming from out of the pack. Tessellate going to do it, though, and win the Gasparilla. She won it by 2.5 in the end. Lady Valor up for second, Ridgie third.
We'll see if Tessellate can do it one more time. And again, not that 3rd straight stakes win. She goes for the Safi Joseph Barn. Junior Alvarado riding. Interesting. We don't see that combination very often. Of course, Safi coming off the 1-2 finish last week on Pegasus World Cup Day. Let's go to race number 11 on the card, the Swedish Chant Stakes, $175,000 here at Gulfstream in the 11th race. Swedish Chant was a nice turf mare back in the early 80s, 1982, 83, won the Rampart, the Orchid. Same connections, interesting when I was looking up her history. Same connections that originally had War Emblem, if you remember. Russell Reineman's stable, Knuckles Farm. Of course, War Emblem sold right before winning the Kentucky Derby back in 2002, but that was the same connections of Swedish Chant back in the 80s, the same folks who brought you War Emblem a couple decades later. Swedish Chant Stakes has a field of 11, one of the bigger fields we're going to kind of dissect this weekend. Should be a good betting race, Scott.
Absolutely, and I'm hopeful it'll make you even better by fading who is almost certain to be the favorite, and that's number 8, Sister Troyenne, and I'm fading a filly that's done very little wrong. She's raced 4 times at 2 turns. She's won them all, including 3 on the turf, and she's won most of them going away. But she really hasn't been improving, and I kind of feel like she's bottomed out a little bit. I'm a big Thoroughgraph guy. She's been running the same number, and usually, you don't see a big move forward after several times. So I'm willing to take a chance that some of these up-and-comers that are going to be much better prices are going to either get the jump on her or come right from right behind her. I don't think there's a ton of speed in here for a 3-year-old filly race of this nature.
Right.
I think Brad Pack is going to be in the perfect spot. Whether that means Jorge Ruiz has this one on the lead, I don't know. But I think she's going to save ground maybe in the pocket. I also think a filly like Aggressive Lime will be more prominent than might have looked on paper. Spirit Doll might as well. But Brad Pack should get a great trip. Grand Motion horses have been firing at this meet thus far. She came off a trip where she didn't have things her way last time out and held A decent group. We'll find out how good. I think Lion Lake is running in a maiden special weight a few hours after we record this today. Maybe Osmosis as well. The Grand Motion Barn horses are firing, and I think this filly might, she's 12-1 on the line, so I'm going to take a swing.
Brian Lynch has been firing at the meet. He's got Sister Troyenne in Storm's wake. Carlos Davis hasn't been firing. He's been incinerating. I mean, he can't lose.
Lynch cooling off, though. Cooling off a little. I've been fading him lately.
He's got one sweet girl in this particular spot coming off of 3 straight wins on the step up in class. Streaks are what this race is all about. A lot of horses coming off victories, multiple victories in some cases. And as you mentioned, the likely favorite in here, she's been odds on in 2 straight. She won the weight a while on the synthetic. Last time out, she beat 2 of these rivals in the Ginger Brew on turf. Let's take a look at Sister Troyenne.
They're at the top of the lane. 3/4, 110 flat. Light handling for Sister Troyenne. She's into the drive on top. Laina is doing everything she can, but Sister Troyenne just has more than Laina. Sister Troyenne by 2.5 up into third Storm's wake. She delivers on the 1-5 promise. Sister Troyenne wins the Ginger Brew. Laina stayed for second ahead of Storm's wake third. She galloped.
As our buddy Tom Quigley says, a man can't survive betting 1-5. You just
right.
Short price after short price with this one. We'll see what she is again. I'm going to give a little look in here to Spirit Doll. We haven't seen her since October when she was forward in the Argier Peggy Stakes. She was in the spinaway. They took a shot with her up at Saratoga and took her to Saratoga last summer. So that was a good sign for Safi Joseph and Peachtree Stable. There's not much pace in this race, like you said. I just think that's where the aggression may come from. She's fresh horses sometimes fire, and from the outside, Edgar Zayas, a speed jock, I think they just go, and I'm going to hope that she's able to go clear and see what happens in there. I don't have a strong opinion on trying to beat the big favorites in here. Just a shot in here at Spirit Doll, who might be a little bit of an overlay price in a race that's just begging to be won up front.
My concern with Spirit Doll is the work pattern of late. There has not been one in a month almost. This is a barn that can be, cagey with some stuff, but generally they usually have a pretty solid work pattern. That said, I doubt they would run her if she wasn't doing well. She's
got the White Barrio work pattern.
Right. A little checkered.
Little checkered for sure. That's a look at race number 11, the Swedish Chant Stakes. Now let's talk about the 3-year-olds, the Holy Bull, the big featured race on Saturday at Gulfstream Park, race number 12. Top 3-year-olds in South Florida heading towards the Florida Derby Series. We had the Mucho Macho Man Stakes. Commandment won that for trainer Brad Cox. We'll skip this leg of the series. We've still got the Fountain of Youth to come up, and then, of course, the Florida Derby at 1 mile and an 1/8. Fountain of Youth, Holy Bull, both at 1 mile and a 16th. Short run to the first turn, 16th pole finish line because the track configuration will be in play for this race as well as the Fountain of Youth Stakes. So speed is usually a premium. A little bit of an inside run can certainly be a big help. But given the field size in this year's Holy Bull Stakes, post probably not going to be a huge deal in here. We're looking to have 2 scratches in the field of 9. The 6 Butane did not make the trip from California due to travel issues. The 9 Game For It reportedly is going to wait for the Sam F. Davis next week at Tampa Bay Downs for trainer Chad Summers. So likely a field of 7 goes to the post, if not less than that in the Holy Bull Stakes. And one name we do not see in the entry box here, and we're not going to see in the entry box for the Fountain of Youth, is the 2-year-old champion Ted Nafi. And we teased this up at the head of the podcast, Scott. It's a good time to talk about it now as we get into some of the better 3-year-olds on the trail. Ted Nafi has been sidelined for the entire Triple Crown series and has been turned out to the farm for bone bruising, kind of a impact injury, that is common amongst racehorses. They say, and sometimes I think bone bruising is code for we don't want to tell you what's really the deal. And I think sometimes it's an easy way to kind of do a catch-all. I don't know the specifics, obviously, on Ted Nafi, but the fact that he's going to be out all the way through the Triple Crown Series certainly deals a blow to the 3-year-old class here. The undefeated winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile out. Your thoughts?
Disappointing, but this happens more than infrequently. I think a couple of years ago, Nisos around this time was deemed out of the picture, and everybody thought that the picture. I forget what it was. Maybe it wasn't Nisos, but there's been a couple more than once where this has happened where we've lost. Now it's disappointing that we won't get to see a horse that was as talented Ted Nafi compete in the biggest races for 3-year-olds. Hopefully he'll be back sooner rather than later. I didn't really try to figure out a prognosis, more just, took in the news as disappointment. And But, it'll make the Fountain of Youth more wide open. I was kind of looking forward not to, become too much of a handicapper, but I was looking forward to trying to beat him at some point. So, that part is disappointing, but obviously health of the animal comes first, second, and third. And
Right.
I'm glad they're doing the right thing.
No doubt about it. When you don't have the Breeders' Cup champion even to start the trail, that's kind of a bit of a letdown. Breeders' Cup champions, though, don't go on to win the Triple Crown races very often. So when it comes down to like the results of the Derby and who your Derby horse is, it may be less of an impact than what it feels in the headlines here this week. It's like, oh man, we lost the marquee horse, but usually time will take care of the marquee horse and development as other horses outdevelop them as 3-year-olds a lot of times. So we may not be, ruining the day that we lost Ted Nafi by the time we get to the Derby, because there'll be plenty of other horses who will step to the fore. First shot at that comes this Saturday in the Holy Bull. Let's talk about this 12th race on the card. 3 really solid names in this field, the 7 that are left. Incredible, the horse who won the Street Sense last year for trainer Riley Mott at Churchill Downs. He'll make his first trip to South Florida. Cannoneer, who on the Stars of Tomorrow 2 card at Churchill Downs Thanksgiving weekend, I thought he stole the show. I thought he ran better than Further Ado did in winning a race prior in the Kentucky Jockey Club Stakes. Cannoneer, one of the top horses coming out of Kentucky, he gets his first shot in Florida. And then you've got Nearly for Todd Pletcher, who's had a couple shots in Florida and has taken big advantage of them. 2 blowout wins for him in Maiden and Allowance Company. Pletcher's got a big one in there. And I guess you could say a 4th horse, too. You got the undefeated New York bred in here, winner of the Sleepy Hollow Stakes in Bravaro for Safi Joseph. He's South Florida based, but he's never run here in the afternoon. Those 2 trips to New York last year as a New York bred. Field of 7 in here. There's some other filler, but to me, it kind of runs through those big 3, maybe 4 horses.
No, I agree with it. I would also, though, add that the couple others that you didn't mention might play some sort of a role in here, because to me, if Global Aviator, a long shot who broke bad sprinting, but, might have a lot more speed than we know, or Roger that Dana, who we know has speed, but just might not be up to the class, cannot make things a little bit difficult for one Cannoneer, I don't think anybody else is going to be able to run that one down. Now, I personally am of the opinion that even if those 2 put some pressure on, he's the clear one to beat here. I think, and I'm excited to hear, because I have not seen your tops, but to me, he's the one in here. He has the most to lose, because I think if he doesn't win this race, it's big trouble for his chances, because he could have things his way. This is the kind of track. He's got to prove himself, I think a horse like Incredible, if he doesn't win this race, is not all that important at all, as long as he runs and, puts in a good effort.
Yeah.
But I think Cannoneer is going to be very tough unless one of those horses, or maybe Nearly, gets out of the gate better. So I don't know. I kind of dove into my thought process on there right away. But where are you at with this one?
I love Cannoneer. I mean, look, he won at 7 furlongs in the second career start. I was surprised they debuted him in June, going short there at Churchill, given the $1.7 million sales price, but he's by into mischief. He's out of an absolute bluehead mare, Catch the Moon. She's produced Gervin, who's a Haskell winner, Louisiana Derby winner, Midnight Bourbon, who was second in the Kentucky Derby, I think second in the Preakness as well. There is a lot of quality through that mare. She's produced 3 or 4 major stakes winners, and Cannoneer looks to be the next one. The route should be perfect, and this is a really good race to advance to your first route. The mile and the 16th at Gulfstream, like I said, plays very favorable, speed friendly, 16th pole finish line. You're not fully extended in here. It's the right stepping stone, and I think it's a good spot for him. He draws well enough in the 5 post, and that, like you mentioned, there's not a lot of speed in here. We don't know if Global Aviator can go faster, but if he does, then there may be a little pace there. But Roger that Dana is the horse to the inside that could show a bit of speed. Cannoneer either sits on the front all the way or sits second perhaps in here and gets a little bit more of a professional trip under Irad Ortiz. Irad won 4 yesterday at Gulfstream on Thursday. He's doing what Irad does. I think he's going to get a great trip in here. He gets the jump on Nearly, who's the horse I think to fear in here. Incredible really goes farther back. And for Incredible to win here at a mile and a 16th, it would be a bit of a surprise. Now, we talked about that last year with Sovereignty, and I know there's some comparisons with Incredible and Sovereignty because they won the same race. It's Riley, the Street Sense as a 3-year-old. They both come from Off the Pace. It's Riley Mott, and of course, his father, Bill, trained Sovereignty. But as I mentioned in my countdown to the crown column, you can't get into those comparisons. Don't get it in your head that this horse is Sovereignty. You know, they're very much separate entities in that respect until proven otherwise. Maybe it'll turn out that way, but I don't think you can kind of clump on the Incredible and say this is the second coming of Sovereignty because he was pretty special.
Yeah, I'm not even coming close to saying that. I think Incredible is a legitimate horse, though. For sure. I like that he was able to finish the deal at the 1-turn mile and then do so again in the Street Sense in back-to-back races and put forth a 99 late pace rating as a 2-year-old. I think Sovereignty, that was already in the triple digits. I think he's going to have his work cut out from him because I don't think he's better than Cannoneer, and I think he's going to be up against it from a race shape perspective. I'm worried about Nearly regressing. That might be optimistic trying to beat him. It's pretty quick for Todd to bring back a horse that he thought was a Derby horse. I would have thought maybe they'd wait to the next race, but he might be kicking down the barn door too. And he's done nothing wrong. That debut effort was against Epic Street, Epic. What was the name of the horse that it was the same race that we already showed the replay of, right? The Epic Summer race.
Yeah, right. And
that was a 1-2-3. There was nobody in that race that made any impression from the back. And since then, he's come down here and been awesome. But I don't know. He's not great from the gate. He's drawn to the outside of the other main contenders. And I just kind of am a little bit worried about it regression because if he doesn't regress, the Cannoneer is going to have his work cut out for him in the lane.
You mentioned it's an interesting spot for Nearly, and for Pletcher, like things have to be kind of picked up and rethought now because Ted Nafi, he had the 2-year-old champion, Ted Nafi. They circled the Fountain of Youth for him and said, we're going to go the Fountain of Youth Florida Derby path with him. And then so Pletcher has all these other horses, some of them later bloomers, horses who break their maidens, win allowance races like Nearly. And you start to see them fan out and move away from Ted Nafi because he doesn't want to run against his own horse. Now he's got that void in the schedule where he's going to have to come up with a Fountain of Youth horse and come up with a Florida Derby horse.
Last president.
And he will because it's Todd Pletcher's barn and he's got a lot of bullets to fire. He's got some very good 3-year-olds this year. But it'll be interesting that, is Nearly, like you said, coming back pretty quick in a tough spot. Would he have benefited from waiting for the Fountain of Youth based on the fact that Ted Nafi's not there now? Be interesting to see. But I don't think this race is an easy one because I think Cannoneer is a legit racehorse. Let's go back to his win, show you what we saw on Kentucky Jockey Club Day. The Stars of Tomorrow, too, I believe is the final race on the card. Under the lights, Cannoneer stole the show that day for Brad Cox.
In the corner nicely there. They're off the turn. Cannoneer in front by 3, heading for the 8th pole. Cornwall Boss trying to muster up a late challenge. Associated has given way. Dragonis has given way. Cannoneer has done none of that. In fact, Cannoneer is finishing full of run. Big time strides to the wire. Cannoneer crushed them.
One shot with the right-handed stick in that race, and that kind of straightened him out under Irad Ortiz, and then he finished up really well. I really think Cannoneer is the one in this crop. For me, early season, we're not making any future bets, Derby bets. Unless you get 50 to 1 on a horse. You're not getting that on him. But to me, if I had to take a horse right now, if you're doing a fantasy draft, which I know I'm going to have one coming up next week sometime, if I draw the number 1 pick, I know where I'm going. He's the one I want.
I bet him in the last pool at 24 to 1. I'm hoping
24?
And I could tell you who took him in the one. I did a fantasy draft a month ago, and I did not pick him, and I wish I did now a month later. But I can tell you the man that called that race was very anxious to take him when he had an opportunity. So I think he's serious. But like I said, I think if he doesn't run well here in this spot, I'd be pretty concerned that he isn't. So a lot on the line for Cannoneer. I hope if we get 2 to 1, I might I'm singling him in all. He's in all of the coast to coast. I think he's in the coast to coast. He's definitely in the Sunset 6, and he's my single in that sequence, which I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah, with Butane Baffert's horse out, the morning line's not going to hold, obviously, at 2-1. I think he's going to go sub.
Nearly was 9-5, though.
Yeah, I think 6-5, 7-5 is where we're going to see him. I think Cannoneer goes favorite in this particular spot.
Me too.
I think he's somewhere around 7-5. We'll see. Let's shift gears now from Gulfstream to Santa Anita on Saturday. A couple stakes races at the Great Race Place. Back in action this weekend on Friday, Saturday, Sunday racing at Santa Anita after a couple extended weeks and holiday weeks. San Pasqual, race number 4, the first one we're going to look at. Grade 2 company in here, 1 mile and an eighth. This is a prep towards the Santa Anita handicap coming up later in the spring. Field of 6 in here. And Scott, we don't have any household names. The Southern California handicap division, the horses were waiting on journalism. We're waiting on Baeza. We saw some horses go to the Pegasus last week from the West Coast. So the West Coast handicap division at this time is pretty light, and somebody can step up and win a grade 2 here that's going to look pretty good on paper.
Yeah, and that's exactly the way I looked at it. This is a good chance for horses that, there's some stronger grade 2s that in Southern California that they'll probably have to compete in. I went with a horse that I'm worried about the trip, but I think is coming into the race in the best form of his career. I'm going to try to beat the favorites. You got Getaway Car, who I was never all that impressed with for Baffert, and Pony Express for the Sadler Barn, who struggled to put races together himself. The Sadler Barn is pretty chilly right now. I'm worried about the trip, but I like number 4, Bartholomew. You said this very easily when we were talking. What is it? Bartholomew? Bartholdi. Okay. That's why I'm not the race caller. Bartholdi. Who had 6 starts on the turf. None of them went well, but he's been a much better horse on the dirt. And he ran a pretty good race to get to the 2 Baffert runners, Nisos and Nevada Beach, who I promise you, Bob, has a higher in the pecking order than one Getaway Car. Maybe I'll eat those words. But I think Bartholdi. I got it. Bartholdi. I think Bartholdi will run a big race. Hopefully he gets the mile and an eighth.
Let's go back and watch him in the Lafitte Pinkai Stakes. He was 23-1 that day, dueling on the front with some star-powered horses from the Baffert Barn.
Now Nisos has a clear shot between horses in Nevada Beach, widest of all. Vodka is back to 4th. There's 1 furlong to go. Nisos takes the lead. He has to deal with friendly fire once again in the form of Nevada Beach. The stablemates come past the 16th pole together. Nisos and Nevada Beach in a Lafitte Pinkai Junior thriller. And Nisos knows where the wire is and scores by a nose. Nevada Beach did everything but win. Bartholdi finished 3rd.
In that one, we don't have those kind of horses back in the San Pasqual, but Bartholdi is going to be the top choice in here for Scott coming out of that race in the Lafitte Pinkai. Let's go to the race number 7, Megahertz, next. But before we get to that race, I do want to mention race number 6. We like to talk about these 3-year-olds. There's a horse in here, Crude Velocity, in race number 6 for Bob Baffert. Watching the workout videos at First.tv and the works that we get to see on some of these developing horses, this looks like a first-time starter who could be something really, really good. Crude Velocity costs $250,000. He's by Bo Liam, and you say, what? He can run. And sometimes these Baffert horses with the obscure pedigrees, they paid a lot for a $7,500 sire. They paid $250 for this horse as a 2-year-old. And the way he's working in the morning, keep an eye on Crude Velocity, race number 6. I don't know how far he's going to run, but he's got a lemon drop kid mare on the dam side. He might be one we're talking about. The West Coast looking to kind of develop who their top 3-year-olds are going to be this year. Race number 6, Saturday at Santa Anita. Keep an eye on Crude Velocity in there. All right, let's go to the Megahertz, race number 7 coming up, named for the Bobby Frankel trainee, who was one of the better distaffers on the turf on the West Coast. She ran off, 2 grade 1s, 6 grade 2s between 2002 and 2005, and she waited to the last minute. If you watch Megahertz, it was like Zenyatta on the turf. You love to watch her finish for Frankel. The Megahertz Stakes, a mile on the turf, perfectly suited in there. Who do you like in this one, Scott?
I think this is a good race in terms of wagering, because my main opinion is I'm willing to take on the 2 morning line favorites, Public Assembly, who I thought was just simply flat last time in the Franco, and I just don't think has been all that great despite some runner-up efforts recently. And then Will Then, who I think this cut back to a mile. I know 3 for 5, but been going longer, significantly longer. Not in love with that cutback for this filly in this race. I think there's two fillies. There are two runners, one a mare, one a filly, that have chances that I'm going to use in horizontals. 3 Princess Moke is not the one I picked, but this one, 2 back, 1 on the going 2 turns, and then last time out ran a good second to Queen Maxima. I think Going Lucky will get overlooked more in the wagering. This is the other Thomas Augustine George Strawbridge bred horse, and she first time was ran for Jonathan Thomas was last time. It was against much lesser. Much lesser, but she just won it very easily. And I like that he's moving her up and giving her a chance right away in the graded stakes company. Not sure what the opportunities were. She's 3 for 4, but Going Lucky to me could get a little bit overlooked here, even with 3 1s in the 4 races. So I'm going to try Going Lucky at 6 to 1.
Scott's going Lucky. I'm going to go a couple stalls out for Vibes in here. This is a horse who loves the turf mile. Turf miles, to me, are one of the more specialist trips in all the horse racing. She's run it 5 times. She's got 3 wins. Last time out in the Grade 1 Matriarch, you can show how tough that race was. She was coming off back-to-back wins and was 20 to 1 in that field. She's back against a field that's a little bit more of her kind of company, and I think if she runs back to where she ran in the Swing Time Stakes over this course 2 starts back, she could be competitive in the Megahertz.
At the back, they turn for home. Violetta M. Venganza turns up the pressure. Vibes has a clear shot and is starting to finish with some interest. Out in the center of the course, Watchtower. Mahina is next. In between horses, Raw Ability is getting involved, as is Nadet from the clouds. Nadet is flying at Vibes. Vibes is in front, and Vibes wins it. Word Play was a gallant second.
Maybe we'll get a finish as exciting as that one. 4 or 5 of them on the wire that day in the Swing Time Stakes. Scott's going Lucky in the Megahertz. I will go with Vibes in there under Juan Hernandez. To the 7th and final we go, our 7th race, or the 7th at Tampa, and our final of 8 stakes races this weekend on the podcast. To the Tampa Bay Stakes, race number 7 on the card there on a card that also includes the Endeavor Stakes. Grade 3 Tampa Bay Stakes on the grass at 1 mile and a 16th. These are the older horses, 4-year-olds and up. We've got a field of 8 in here. Scott, which one did you lean to?
Yeah, I like Quattro Cinto in here a little bit. This is a Son of Warfront who I think you use the term form is dirtied up. So when you look in the paper, you can kind of make excuses for the recent efforts. The 2 most recent ones, the excuse for me is Wolfie's Dynaghost has been very, very, very good, including a track record. And look how fast those fractions were, both in the River City and Fort Lauderdale. Facing this horse was not what Quattro Cinto wants. Quattro Cinto wants to be on the lead. Now, you say, Scott, well, he was on the lead in the Turf Mile back on October 4th. Well, that was a Grade 1 race, but more importantly, that thing absolutely fell apart. It wasn't as if he had things easy. But you go back to the races before it, when he has things his way on the front end, he's pretty tough customer. Julian Lake Peru fits him well because Julian won't force him to the lead, as we know. But when he gets to the lead on horses, he's very good at rationing out that speed. So I like number 3, Quattro Cinto here at Tampa in race number 7, the Tampa Bay.
He'll try to take him wire to wire like he did at Kentucky Downs back in September.
It's the front runner. Degree of Risk is trying to get after him, and so too is Spirit Prince coming home well, but Quattro Centro is holding sway, maintaining a clear advantage to the wire. Quattro Centro takes it by 2 lengths. Degree of Risk second.
He'll take on Win for the Money in here, Scott. He's the winner of the Grade 1 Woodbine Mile 2 years ago. Last year was 6th in his title defense in the Woodbine Mile. Second off the layoff for Win for the Money, who was kind of surprised in an allowance race last time out, getting beat a half length at even money. What do you make of this horse now, age 7? Obviously, he's got plenty of class. This is a race where he should match up pretty well, and the Cassie Barnes going well over the past couple months. Win for the Money. Do you like him or not like him in this spot?
Well, he's another horse that you could make a lot of excuses for. He got in a little bit of trouble last time out in that drop in class. And prior to that, I mean, he just hasn't had a lot of really good trips, and he's been there at the wire. I wonder if he's lost a little bit of the will to win, if some of that is not on him. Sonny Leone, an interesting rider here. Looks like once in the last 60, Leone and Cassie have hooked up. I know that Sonny Leone didn't ride for him in his Derby victory. Mark wishes he did. But interesting course. I think generally the sharp people have liked this horse in a couple of those tougher races. I just expect him to take quite a bit of money.
I like what you're doing with Quattrocento because you're removing a lot of variables in an otherwise kind of a coin flippy kind of race. Get to the front. Don't worry about it. And like you mentioned, I think very smartly, Julian Leparoux is not known as a speed rider, but he's unbelievably good at rationing speed on the turf when he has a horse that looks like this in form. So he is adept and fits this horse really well. Quattrocento, top pick in there. Fausto Gutierrez trains in the Tampa Bay Stakes. That is race number 7 on Saturday. Again, we want to remind you, coming up this weekend, a pair of $1,000 hit and splits in the late pick 4. Saturday, Santa Anita Gulfstream. Sunday, Santa Anita Gulfstream for that same promotion. Be sure to check that out. And in the Beat the Host competition, I think it's week 5 for Beat the Host in the 9 weeks, $65,000 handicapping tournament for the season, $1,000 weekly top prize for the top handicapper. The Beat the Host target this week is Brian Natto from Gulfstream Park, so be sure to take him on this weekend. Scott was able to knock out some players last week and Beat the Host as well. I think we're down to something like 17 players out of more than 700 have beaten the hosts in all 4 weeks. So the chance to sweep the host and get that $6,500 bonus is getting more narrow each and every week. So Scott knocked out, I believe, 10 of them. And we're down to 17 players who can sweep the host. But be sure to play. The top 5 players each week qualify for the Beat the Host Championship round, which will come up the first week of February. So a lot of time still to play and beat the host this weekend. But Brian is your target. Good luck to those playing out there. Scott, you get the final word for the weekend.
Yeah, it's Sunshine Shap and Sunshine Plonk this this weekend. You know, we got the home tracks always. You're going down to Tampa. We had to switch things up a little bit. I did some Tampa earlier in the week, but looking forward to kind of some of the races that we're missing coming up in the future, but very much excited for the 2 big tracks, the 2 first tracks, Gulfstream and Santa Anita, particularly the late horizontals at Gulfstream. I think, including the Coast to Coast and the Sunset Six, I think they're very attractive wagers this weekend.
Enjoy the Holy Bull and all the racing around the country this weekend. On behalf of everybody with First Bet and Express Bet, my partner Scott Shapiro, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great weekend. Talk to you next week.